Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 21 Hats podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Feldman. This week, Laura Zander tells Shawn Busse and Jay Goltz about her 8-month roller coaster ride pursuing an acquisition. The deal would bring a new brand and profitable revenue at a reasonable price. To Laura, the creative challenge and opportunity are exciting. Really exciting. But the financials are a concern. Do I do this, she asks? Is it worth it? And then there's the broker, whose numbers don't add up and who wants to collect his fee, including his piece of the earnout, immediately. Plus, Shawn explains how the rise of inexpensive design contractors forced his company to become a better business. Even in good times, owning and running a business can be a lonely pursuit. Our hope is that these weekly conversations will let owners know they are not alone in facing challenges. Same thing with our daily newsletter, the 21 Hats Morning Report, which highlights the most important news of the day for business owners and which you can subscribe to at 21hats.com, where you can also find transcripts of our podcast episodes and lots of other articles and interviews. Joining me this week on the podcast are regulars Shawn Busse, CEO of Kinesis, which is based in Portland, Oregon, and works with small businesses on marketing, culture, and strategy. Jay Goltz, whose companies in Chicago include a picture frame business, artist frame service, and a home furnishing store, Jason Home. And Laura Zander, who is CEO of Jimmy Bean's Wool, a digital yarn store based in Reno, Nevada, and Madelintosh, a yarn supplier based in Fort Worth, Texas. The episode is titled, Do You Really Want That Shiny Object? Welcome, Shawn, Jay, and Laura. Great to have you here today. Laura, we haven't been able to talk to you in a while because you've been busy chasing another acquisition. How's that going?
Oh, what a great roller coaster ride. It has been a 8-month journey. You know, I was approached by a broker who said that there was someone in our space that was looking to get out. And I told him no. I said, I'm not interested.
Wow.
I don't want to take something else on. You know, I'm finally starting to be able to get my life back. You know, Huck is 12 years old, starting to spend some time with him, blah, blah, blah. So I said no probably 4 or 5 times, you know, and then I talked to my team about it, and we had just moved into a new building, and, you know, it's just too much, and it just wasn't worth it.
Laura, you said that this business is in your space. You're in a number of spaces. Which space are you referring to?
In the yarn industry. And I don't want to get too specific, you know, because it is a small industry, but you know, it's an area that we have now some experience with, and, you know, and it was a family-run business. So anyway, you know, we, after a few months, this January or February, I finally kind of was beat down and was just like, look, sure, we'll take it, but this is all we can afford to pay for it. This is all we're willing to pay for it. You know, we don't want to go into debt to buy this. We don't want to take the risk, you know, because we just don't know. It's a business that's been declining for a while. And so, you know, we think that we can turn it around, but, you know, we didn't want to put the rest of the businesses at risk as well as, you know, a ton of money and blah, blah, blah. And there's definitely like an ego play and an ego part of this that, oh my gosh, I could be the hero again, you know, and I could jump in and I could flex my muscles and use our team, and we could show what we could really do. So there's an ego part of it. There was also, you know, an intellectual challenge. You know, I've for the last couple of years, particularly the last year, as we've really built the team that is managing the business in Texas, the last like 6-9 months or so, it's been going really well. And so I'm feeling pretty empty, you know, and I'm like, what do I have to do?
Empty?
Yeah.
Wait, what does that mean?
Well, I'm just feeling, you know, a little purposeless. I don't have challenges. I haven't created challenges. I mean, business, the teams are running really well, and they're running really well on their own, and they don't need me. And so I'm like, well, you know, what's my purpose? You know, what am I supposed to be doing? You know, I went and visited Jay one time, and I saw that like he does crossword puzzles, and I don't know if he does crosswords, but he reads the obituaries, and he goes into the office and he's just there. And I'm like, oh, so is this my job, is just to kind of be there and be supportive and a cheerleader? Anyway, you know, having a bit of a midlife work crisis where, and crisis is too strong of a word. I don't mean it that way. I just mean I'm this opportunity was like, okay, maybe this is something I could dig my brain or dig my claws into and really take on and make an impact and try to turn this around. And it was really exciting to think about. Really, really exciting.
What she has described, I've lived through numerous times. The whole thing with, I can do more, and what a good deal. I got to take advantage of this. She described exactly where I've been.
Laura, can you tell us whether this company was more like your company in Texas, which makes yarn, or more like Jimmy Bean's Wool, which sells it over the internet? I just want to understand why it appealed to you and what it would have done for your business.
It would have increased revenue. Yeah, so we would have increased revenue. It's in the yarn industry, so there's obviously the creative side of it, designing patterns, working with, it's selling yarn, selling designs or creating designs, selling and working with, just working with the whole industry. Again, super small industry. So there's a lot of crossover. There are a lot of people that do all kinds of things. There's wholesale, there's e-commerce, there's retail.
Can you give us some sense of why this was worth buying as opposed to emulating? Is it a brand or?
There's a brand, there's a presence, there's, a customer list, there are relationships, there's intellectual property, stuff that, they've created over the years that's been fantastic and would be really helpful. This business would have been helpful to all aspects of our business, partially financially, hopefully, if we could get it back on track, but also creatively. It would just give us it would tap into a customer base that we're not currently tapped into. If you use the hotel, I guess, analogy, Jimmy Bean's is a very standard kind of Fairfield Inn, Marriott. It's nice, but it's not the top end. It's not the bottom end. Madeline Tosh is this very, very quirky kind of brand. So it's more joie de vivre or, the boutique hotels that are interesting and fun. And this brand was neither of those. And so, it would introduce us to a different audience that crosses over some. Again, there's the financial side of it obviously has to work. Otherwise, it's just not worth it. The creative side was really appealing and interesting. And I thought that our current team, our current employees would really enjoy working on something different and fresh because they're creatives. And it's something that's made a mark on the yarn industry, and we didn't want it to go away. There's a little part of that.
It became a really good deal, a really, really, really appealing deal. Like, my God, how do I not do this deal?
Totally.
It didn't start out that way. So that's the point. We get sucked into these things.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Okay, so it sounds like there was a real advantage, maybe financially. It sounds like there was, especially because the cost of money is low right now. Sounds like it would have expanded your market share. That's a good thing. What was your take on culture fit and alignment between your organization and their organization?
That is something that started to get a little more complicated at the end, but it's not a huge company, so that wasn't a primary concern. We would absorb a lot of it. We would be able to save a lot of money by doing things kind of our way and doing things in-house. So even if the revenue was the same amount, we could take it from not being profitable to being super profitable. Not super profitable, but profitable. They have relied over the years on a lot of consultants, and looking through their books and getting to know them and the people that they work with. I am just reminded of how many consultants there are that come out of the woodworks that charge ridiculous prices and don't do anything to really help the business. And so by not spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on things that they don't need, and they don't realize that they actually intuitively have the intelligence to do a lot of this stuff themselves, I think that we could make it a much healthier business.
I've hired really terrible consultants and I've hired really fantastic consultants. And I'm curious how you're able to discern between that by looking at the P&L.
I don't know. I mean, the P&L is a story. And I'm looking at the P&L for years and years and years. And, you see where spending is increasing and decreasing. And I don't know, I can just read it. You can tell exactly what's happening. You can tell.
Are you saying you saw the expense, but you didn't see any results
Yeah.
from the consulting work?
Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of consulting was it?
All kinds. I mean, multiple avenues of consulting, from HR to legal to marketing to website to accounting. And I think, they're just being taken advantage of, honestly.
Laura, when you said that it was like a 6 or 8 month roller coaster, did that time pass because of what you described, the deal getting better and you getting more enticed and more interested?
That's a good question. I think the length of time and the reason that it took so long to go through this process, honestly, I think that's probably normal. That's been the case with, some of the other stuff that we've done. There's just back and forth. But a lot of that part of it was, me being presented with the numbers in the beginning and questioning the numbers and finding out the numbers aren't accurate, the numbers that the broker put together. And so then I'm like, well, if you can't give me accurate numbers to begin with, then how do I trust any of the numbers down the road? Me saying, no, not interested. Okay, well, let me come back with some better numbers. Okay.
Different numbers,
Yes. Yes.
I'll go get the other numbers.
Yeah.
She's got a punchline to tell here, and this isn't it.
Laura, can you tell us, how did you figure out that the numbers weren't right?
I don't know. I just know. I mean, you just look at it.
They didn't look legit.
No, they're just not right. They're like, here's what our average purchase is. And after 20 years, I know what the average yarn consumer spends. I mean, I've seen all kinds of data. I know all kinds of shops. I know all kinds of manufacturers. I mean, I know what the range is.
You just looked at them and on their face knew that it didn't make sense.
Absolutely.
Did you feel like they were inflated, Laura? I mean, like, no way this is their average customer value.
No, on that specific number, no, it was the reverse. It was way too low. But then it becomes things like, we have, and I'm just making numbers up, but we have 10 customers. We have 10 people on our email newsletter list. So we have 10 customers. And I'm like, 10 people on your newsletter list doesn't mean you have 10 customers. Are you telling me that every single one of those people on your email newsletter list buys from you every year? Like, define customer to me. So it just was a lack of understanding. And I'm not I don't know what I'm doing either, but I can compare it to the data.
This isn't even like they were necessarily trying to deceive her.
No.
It really was probably they just had bad internal people that were giving them bad numbers. I mean, I get them here once in a while that I think, wait, this can't be right. Oh, I forgot to put the blah, blah, blah. It's just bad numbers.
Bad numbers, which to me was indicative of a lack of understanding of the business, primarily from the broker's side, but from the broker's side and from the owner's side as well.
If you're not comfortable saying this, that's totally legit. But is this a sub $2 million business?
It is now. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. The reason I ask is like there's this kind of echelon, business operation that I think Jay really understands really well, right? The $250,000 to $2 million business or even $1 million business where it's just so hard to get good advice. It's so hard to know what you're doing.
Yes.
You're struggling to just sort of like make it in the world.
And you're doing everything yourself. It's almost a profession. Right, you never quite got the hiring, management,
correct,
infrastructure. You don't have to. You can be running around doing everything.
And that's part of what was attractive is that we have the infrastructure on both sides. The people that own this business, like I adore them, and I respect them in a lot of ways. They have a lot of talents that I don't have or will never have. And so that was part of the interest, is that there was a lot of synergy and complementary skills. But from a infrastructure, they were in a bad spot because they're just too small for some things and too big for other things.
It's kind of like when Paul talks about the independent cabinet maker in his industry. Like there's just so many of those types of owners. And they might do stuff with like cash and like, they're not paying themselves a fair wage and they're putting things on the business that shouldn't be,
Yeah.
like they're, like their Netflix subscription is a business expense and all kinds of weird stuff.
Yep, totally. So the roller coaster really happened, after I'm like, look, we'll take it on. But again, we're not taking any risk. We're not taking on any debt. I'm not taking a loan out. Here's how much money we have in the bank. You can have this, and then we'll pay you, over the next few years, a percentage of sales. And the broker came to us and said, we need to close this thing. And we're thinking we're going to close in like May or whatever. I mean, we had so much stuff going on in February and March. I mean, that's like the busy season for our world. And he came to me March 1st-ish, I think, and said, we need to close this sooner rather than later. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, are you thinking 60 days? And he's like, I'm like, 30 days? He's like, no, 15. And I'm like, well, shit. Not to get too personal, but like Doug was about to go out of town for 2 weeks. We have a trade show that we're going to. I've got this kid that somebody's supposed to watch, apparently like 12 years old. He's not supposed to stay at home by himself for a week. So I'm like, okay. He's like, it just needs to happen. It needs to happen. It's got to happen in the next 15 days.
What was his reason?
What's interesting is the reason that he gave me. So I went and visited, and he's telling me that they need to close this sooner rather than later. And I get there and they're like, we thought you wanted to close sooner rather than later.
Oh, is that the punchline? It feels like a punchline.
No, that's the sub punchline.
So I, lost it just a little bit. So then I just find out some more details on the engagements that they have made with consultants, and with people who are helping. And I'm seeing them being taken advantage of. And they're great people. And I'm really frustrated. And so I'm like, it's not right. The broker wanted to be paid on the down payment. Basically, he wanted to be paid on the amount, the cash that we were going to give, plus future royalties for the next 5 years. But he wanted to be paid that day. And I'm just like,
is that the punchline?
No.
Oh, no.
He had this super inflated number, to make it look like they're getting a really great deal. And I'm like, I'm not going to promise that these are the sales that we can do and that these are the royalties we can generate. I'm not going to do it. I don't feel good about it. I don't like it.
Did you challenge him? Did you?
Yeah.
And how did he respond?
Well, it turned into they didn't end up talking to their broker anymore. So then I became the negotiator. And so I'm negotiating between them and their broker on his fees and the legal stuff and blah, blah, blah. It just turned into a shit show. It just got really, really, really messy. We decided on the 15th, we're like, you know what? No, we've got to pause. We can't do this. Like, it doesn't feel right. We don't even really know what our agreement is. We've sent stuff to their lawyers. We've sent stuff to our lawyers. So we decide we're going to push it back to the 1st. And then, we get close to the 1st, and the way that the deal was structured, the broker had not created, it just got really complicated. And our accountants were like, no, this does not work. I would not recommend this. I would not suggest, entering into this type of agreement. Blah, 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 blah. Their lawyer put something in at the last minute and he's just trying to protect them. I mean, it wasn't malicious or deceptive. It was now they have this lawyer who's jumping in and doing all these things because the broker didn't really take care of all these things and didn't communicate it because he just, wants his check.
Wait, you left the part out. I've been waiting for you to tell the one part that I think is relevant, that this is also not the punchline. The guy hung up on him. Tell him that part.
Yeah.
Because I think that really gives you the flavor of just what's going on here.
Yeah. So, they decide that, they were going to have a Zoom with their broker, and I'm invited to be there to discuss his fee, and how this is going to work out. And they start to argue, during this Zoom. And at some point, the broker just hangs up, but he's the one who leads, who was the host of the Zoom. So he just gets pissed off and he hangs up. And I'm like, whoa, like the whole Zoom just goes away.
I mean, this is just so incredibly unprofessional that it's just like he doesn't deserve to get a commission on. This is terrible. Who does that?
Yeah, I know. apparently they've been working together for a couple years. So who knows what the relationship has been before that. I mean, I've only got my perspective, but my perspective was they're being sold. They're being told that they're going to make X number of dollars at the end of the day. And I'm not comfortable with that because I don't think that's realistic. And he's wanting to get paid on those X dollars. And they're being told that they have to pay taxes on that dollar figure that he's going to get paid on right from the start. Or that could be tax evasion because that's what the deal is worth. And now I've got to pay. Now I got to depreciate, blah, 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 blah. It was not structured well. I mean, it just wasn't structured well. And so we just decided, we got on a call and we're like, we're just going to pause. Let's take a pause and think about this for a few days. And then we came back and, they're just like, you know what? We don't really want to sell anyway. We want to figure it out ourselves and let's partner. We have a great relationship. So let's partner in some other ways down the line. And I've offered, I'm like, look, I will come up there because we spent a ton of time together. And I'm like, I know your P&L. I know what you guys are doing. I can help you make money. Let me come up there and I can tell you where to cut your spending, where to increase it. That's what I'm decent at.
Would you be doing that because you're a nice person, or is there a business interest in your doing that?
I don't know that I'm a nice person, but...
Let's take a vote.
I believe you've left the punchline out to this. You simply don't need the aggravation from this.
Yes.
Am I wrong?
No, you are not wrong. And that's throughout this whole process. For 6 months, I've called Jay and I'm like, okay, you've got the crystal ball. You're 20 years farther down the road than I am. You know what it's like. Your kid is 20 years older than mine is. Do I do this? Is it worth it?
But it sounds like they were the ones who said no.
No, we decided together. So I called Jay again, as usual. Thank God he doesn't charge me by the hour. But I called him and I'm like, what do I do? There's a part of me that wants this challenge, and that's really interested in it. It is a good business decision. But there's another part of me that I just want to go for a run this summer. I finally have gotten back in shape. I'm starting to cook again. I'm starting to I might decorate my house. We've lived in this house for 4 years. I haven't put a picture up.
Ouch. No pictures, which means no framing. Ouch.
No frames.
That's messed up.
So I'm like, what do I do? Is it worth it? Sure, we'll make some extra money. And Jay's just like, you have enough money. You're fine. Spend the time with your son. Spend the time with your son, because if you don't, you're going to regret it. And you only have 6 years left with him.
Before he goes to college.
Yeah.
This isn't a case of she needs this to be successful. She's successful.
Right.
She just is. So it was very easy for me because I've been through it and I'm living through the 20-year later regrets of, gee, I coulda, shoulda, woulda. I think that was the punchline. The punchline is she really doesn't need this. It's not as simple as it would look in the beginning, and it's just going to make her life more difficult.
Yeah. And the benefit to it doesn't outweigh the cost.
But, what's really cool about this, Laura, is if I think back to all the moments in my business career where something has been really hard or bad, oftentimes those are the times when I look back and go, wow, I'm really fortunate that happened to me. And I think that this has the potential, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, who knows, where you could have a new relationship that's deeper and more meaningful. You could have helped this company out. And they may come around to you again, but in a way better state where their numbers, they know their numbers, and this jerk loser of a broker is not in the picture.
Laura, you've bought a number of businesses in the past, and I know that on at least one of them, you had a very difficult situation with someone who was advising you on your end of the acquisition. I guess I'm asking you, do you think this is a problem that smaller businesses face trying to do acquisitions?
Yes. And I think it's not just M&A, it's in all the spaces that small business owners attract other small business owners who don't go work for Goldman Sachs and maybe sometimes don't know what they're doing. And there are good ones. There are good consultants and there are good M&A guys. It's more challenging to find them.
Especially when you're smaller, because if they're that smart, they're not dealing with you and me. They're dealing with $200 million companies and making a fortune.
I think Laura talks about a larger problem in the small business space, which is it's very difficult to have a small business customer be profitable. And so what happens is that the larger firms that might have the acumen and skill generally won't take on the work. If they do take on the work, they give it to the B team or the C team because they're taking it just because they can add a little bit more revenue, not because it's their right fit customer. And then you get the other situation where if somebody's in that space all the time, they often haven't figured out a good model to make it profitable. So they get like pretty weak employees or inexperienced employees working for them. And so then the work product is pretty poor. So it's a real challenge.
I have had that exact situation numerous times. So I believe that's just the nature of the beast. And I would say I would like to add to this segment because I think in the big picture, here's the message. There's a book written by the guy that started Vanguard, the Vanguard fund called Enough. And there's a scene he talks about. They're having a party at this huge hedge fund mansion. You know, the guy's got a helicopter pad and swimming pools, just an unbelievable spread. And there's two guys there. One is Kurt Vonnegut, the writer, and Joseph Heller, who wrote, Catch-22. And Joseph Heller says to Kurt Vonnegut, he goes, "Can you believe this house? Did you see the helicopter pad?" And he goes, "Yeah, but I've got something that this guy will never have." "What's that?" "Enough." And that's the name of the book. And the fact is, Laura has enough. And I'm not saying she should stop growing, but when you have enough, it should change the way you think about things. Do you need to bring more aggravation?
How do you know Laura has enough?
Because I know what she has. She's got enough. She's there. Her business is big enough. Laura will never be wanting for money. She's in good shape. I'm not saying she should stop working. I'm not saying she should stop growing it. But to go take on something that's going to add nothing but aggravation to her life and very little money just is bad alignment. It just doesn't make any sense.
Laura, do you have enough?
Yes, we have enough. Doug and I are savers. We've been savers since we met, but we're thrifty. I mean, we haven't bought a sofa. We don't have furniture.
First, you had to go after picture framing. Now you're not buying sofas either. Wow.
No. So we live a very Spartan lifestyle. We have a nice house, but we have enough. I'm not wanting for anything.
Laura, last question on this, and then we're going to go to another topic. But are you at all concerned that you're going to have second thoughts about this? Or is this done in your mind?
No.
All right. Let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsor, and then I want to talk about the difference between hiring employees and hiring contractors and how that keeps evolving. I'm here with Rob Levin, co-founder of Work Better Now, which provides businesses with highly talented virtual assistants. Rob, I've noticed that owners tend to have certain questions about virtual assistants. For example, what exactly can they do?
Yeah, Lauren, we get this question all the time because people really know deep down that they need an assistant, but they're not exactly sure how it works and what they can do for them. I would say that our clients use our assistants in one of two ways. They will either use them much like I've been using my assistant for the past 8 years as an executive assistant, handling my calendar, which takes up so much time, email management, database, file management, personal tasks, creating documents for me. And then a lot of our clients basically operationalize our assistants. So we have assistants with titles like project manager, marketing associate, operations manager, and customer service representative.
I think some owners worry they'll spend more time managing their assistant than it would have taken them just to do the tasks themselves. How do you respond to that?
Right. This is a deadly trap, not only with assistants, but really with any employees, which is, I can do it faster myself. And the reality is you might be able to do it faster yourself. Of course, it's impossible to grow your business if you're doing everything yourself. I was very much of a similar mindset. And what I did with my assistant is I basically told him what needs to be done and had them document it. I hate documenting tasks, but I know the processes are so important. Now we have a manual full of my tasks. I only had to tell him once that he can follow time and time again. And if he's out, somebody else can follow. And also think about it this way. If you're a business owner making something like, let's say, $200,000 a year, which is about $100 an hour, you're basically paying somebody to do administrative work at $100 an hour if you're doing these tasks yourself.
That makes a lot of sense. What does it cost?
The cost is $1,900 a month. And as you know, Lauren, we are offering 21 Hats readers and listeners $150 off per month for 3 months just by mentioning the word Lauren. There are no contracts. Also very important for people to know.
Can you promise a return on that investment?
If you're not getting a return, something's not going right. all of our clients are not only getting a return with the first assistant they've hired, but many of our clients are now on their second, third, and fourth assistant.
Where can we learn more?
Workbetternow.com. And again, when you sign up for a 15-minute consult, just mention the word Lauren, and we'll make sure to give that $150 off for each of the first 3 months.
Thanks, Rob. And we're back. So the rules have been changing a lot on contractors, and I'm curious if any of you feel your businesses have been affected by that.
I don't think right now I'm feeling the impact of it. That impact happened years ago. So when Kinesis started, we were, for lack of a better description, we were a graphic design and brand development shop. And, this is 2000. So, the advent of the personal computer and desktop publishing was sort of in its early days. I got my start using X-Acto knives. All right. So it used to be that those who worked on brand and design were really artists who found a commercial job. And then the commoditization of design began in earnest as the internet took over, and you started to see sort of the first wave, which was stock photography. So you had, an outsourcing of what used to be a really highly creative expert field into, sort of cheap and high volume. And then graphic design started to get commoditized, whether that was, overseas work or contractors or templates, so it's been happening in my industry for a long time.
What did you have to do to adapt?
You really had to become much more bespoke. So you could no longer just be a production company, right? You could no longer just crank out newsletters and make 3-page folders. You actually had to help companies solve much harder strategic problems that couldn't be answered over the internet through a, really inexpensive contractor in some other country. You really had to become a strategist. You could no longer just be a graphic designer.
You hit the nail on the head when you talk. It turned into a commodity. You needed to get into stuff that wasn't a commodity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's been our journey, is to become much more of a strategic partner. And we still do that work, but it's in service to the strategy. It's in service to the business model iteration of companies. It's in service to growth and, positioning in different ways. It's sort of the industry in large has become Walmart and Target. All right. Cheap. Everybody can get it. If you want to be friendly, you could say it's been democratized. And so what we've had to become, for lack of a better comparison, Jay's framing shop, right? We've had to become that company where you come to us with a specific need and you're not going to get it solved by going to Target or Walmart.
It sounds like it forced you to be a better business.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. No question. But it's also, it's had a lot of consequences.
What are you referring to?
Well, I would just say that the last 40 years of globalization, just sort of on a macro level, it has taken a lot of jobs and made them far, far, far less valuable. A lot of jobs are no longer a path to sort of middle class existence. So those jobs, they've really become compressed and pushed overseas. So we've had to go upstream to make it work.
It's as simple as, things aren't made here anymore. Used to get picture frame molding was made in the United States. Now it's not. Well, now because of the internet, they figured out a way of, we don't need to pay graphic designers $60 an hour. We can pay $14 an hour from someone in wherever they are. They've outsourced just like manufacturing it. The internet has made a global competition and is going to the lowest priced people in the world.
Well, have you done that too, Shawn? Have you hired contractors where you once might have had employees?
We work with contractors, not extensively like a lot of agencies do, because we've gone into the strategic realm. I need my entire team to understand the business as if we are an employee of the business. But how we think of contractors, not as cost savings, we think of it as expertise. So, if we need a client to have really great photography of their team, illustrating the culture and what it's like to work there, there is no stock photo that can capture that. So we need a photographer. We got to bring in somebody who's actually really good at capturing that. And it's expensive, but it's like a totally different product than going to Target or Walmart. So it's good for us in that way. But a lot of folks do use contractors as a cost savings in our related industries.
There are some contractors who really do enjoy the freedom that being a free agent affords them. And there are other contractors that looks a little bit less romantic, like, maybe being an Uber driver. It sounds like you're working more with the first type, the kind of people who have an expertise and a benefit from being able to sell that expertise to multiple places.
Yeah, that's been our strategy. And part of it is that we want somebody that has actually decided they've embraced that lifestyle, because honestly, you build a relationship with them much like you would as an employee, right? And so, I can go to Brian and say, hey, Brian, I've got a photo shoot in 3 months. Can you make sure you're available? And he will, because we've committed to him for years. And so that's a very different kind of contractor relationship than like what I would call a highly transactional one that you see, I would say, more often than not.
You know what? I can only deal with my own business, and I can tell you that all businesses are not the same. And if you want to provide a better product and a better service, it's going to be by most likely having your own employees who you've trained, who you kept, who are on the same mission with you, and trying to go ahead and piece together a bunch of freelancers to do that. I just think you're getting a different level of end product. And in some cases, maybe it's fine, but it's funny how business is business, whether you're framing pictures or doing what Shawn does. Yeah, I do a better job framing pictures than going to a big chain that's got a bunch of minimum wage people who have been trained for about 3 hours.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's a functional problem, so coming out of the recession, I watched like just marketer after marketer get fired. And so the model we built in response to that, ironically, was a contractor model. So we would go to small businesses and say, look, you had a marketing person, you had one person. But the truth is that one person can't do all of the marketing things that are needed, from strategy to execution to social. You actually need a team of people. You can't afford a team of people. You can't vet all these people on these freelance websites and find good ones, let alone corral them together. So hire us. We have a team. It'll cost you a little bit more than that in one person, but you'll get like 10x quality. And that model was killer. We grew 30, 40%. I mean, we were kind of on the J trajectory in those days.
No, that makes perfect sense. That as a business owner, I can't go hire. I didn't understand. You go on the internet, I'll hire someone that knows how to do the internet. No, it's like 6 jobs, literally. It's the photographer, it's the graphic designer. You need people that can do each one of those 6 things. And there's very few people on this earth, if there are any, that are going to do all of them well.
All right, we're just about out of time. I want to come back to Laura one more time and kind of the topic of whether you have enough or not. Laura, last week it was Shawn, Jay, and Paul, and I asked them about their philosophy about taking money out of the business when they have been able to versus reinvesting it all in the business. And given where this conversation has gone today, I'd like to ask you the same question. Have you been able to take money out of the business?
Yeah. But then we put it back in if we need to.
That goes without saying.
Yeah, it just goes both ways. So yeah, there have been years where we've taken stuff out. And
what do you do with it when you take it out?
We invest it, mutual funds, whatever.
Do you have a college fund for Huck?
Yeah, we started that when he was born, so that's done.
Nice.
Yeah, he's really good with money. Like I said, we're really frugal in a lot of ways. We will take money out, and then if we need to, we will put money right back in. So when we bought the business in Texas, I mean, that was all of our liquidity, personally.
I had no cash until the last year or two. For years, I put it all back in, and I don't regret it. And I wouldn't go and preach to someone, you got to have some money on this. If you can do it, great.
It's a worthy goal.
It is, but if your business is growing and it's money's going into inventory and receivables and equipment, and your business is successful and it's growing, I don't regret what I did. Do I think the end goal should be to get more balance and have? Yeah, absolutely. But that's easier said than done sometimes.
Well, there's also, there's a really interesting conversation to be had around how you can build the model to ideally mitigate the cash flow problems. So like the typical business, right? They sell, especially B2B, they'll sell a service and then they get some crazy terms like net 30 or net 60, so then cash is just a nightmare for those businesses. And what a lot of businesses are starting to figure out is how do we get the money faster so that we can eliminate that growth bottleneck. And I know that's a different thing in the space you're in, Jay.
No, it isn't. On some hand, no. Like, for instance, like we tell people, would you like to pay for the whole thing now or half?
Yes.
we get 50% deposits. Like, that's the way it goes. I think you're right. I think that some consulting firms have figured out they need to get, a retainer on the front end, and that might solve their cash flow problems. And if the person won't do it, then maybe you just got to find someone that will.
All right. My thanks to Shawn Busse, Jay Goltz, and Laura Zander. As always, guys, thanks for sharing. Wait, don't leave yet. If you have a question or a comment that you'd like the 21 Hats owners to address, send it to me by replying to your morning report or by email at lauren@21hats.com. That's LOREN@21hats.com. Do it now before you forget. And don't be afraid to tell Jay what you really think. He can take it. And if you got something out of this conversation, help us reach more business owners. Tell a friend. Subscribe and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to the Morning Report at 21hats.com. This episode was produced by Jess Thuberon, founder of Blank Word Productions. Okay, now you can leave. Thanks for listening, everyone.